The classic C before the K, D-Rock. It never fails. I'm Gary Vaynerchuk from VaynerMedia. I'm also partners with Jesse and David at Brave. Super excited to be here, talking about two things I'm super passionate about, which is sports and live. I'm gonna let the gentlemen introduce themselves and then we'll kick it off.
I'm Will Funk with Turner, formerly Turner Broadcasting, now we refer to ourselves as Turner. I'm the EVP of Sales and Property Partnerships for Turner, so I monetize our sports properties and programming across our portfolio of linear TV and digital, as well as intellectual property that we control.
I'm Jeff Gerttula. I'm Senior Vice President, General Manager at CBS Sports Digital. I oversee the business of CBSSports.com, CBS Sports apps, 24/7 Sports, Max Preps, and our CBS Sports college athletics site division. So.
George Barrios, the Chief Strategy and Chief Financial Officer for WWE. Obviously, one of the largest live providers on traditional TV, on AVOD, YouTube, and Facebook, and our own subscription service, global subscription service.
Morning, I'm Clark Pierce. I'm in charge of the Fox Sports Go product and TV Everywhere and over-the-top strategy for Fox Sports.
Clark, let's start with you. When you hear me say the words, sports and the way that I think this collective room is now defining live, what's your 1 to 2 minute thesis? Like, if there's one bullet point that everybody should walk away from your point of view, what's the big takeaway from this shift that we're all living through?
Wow, that's a lot.
When he's done, I'm leaving.
Yeah, it's not even.
That's why
It's not even 11:30. I think that basically the main thing that we strive for, and I don't think I'd be putting words into the mouths of anybody else here on the panel, is just to deliver the content as quickly as possible on the best screen available to the users. And that's when we started Fox Sports Go a little over 3 years ago, we were given two mantras. Make sure the picture is as good as TV, and figure out how to get it to them as fast as possible. And I think we've done a really good job of making it as good as television. We've got 60 frames per second on most of our devices, so it looks as good as TV. And I think what we're focused on now is taking that user experience to the next level. And how do we make it a complementary experience, but also a better experience than what they can just get? So sort of step one was make it like TV. We did that. Now we're moving on to the new things, and people are gonna get to the content. So I think we have to make sure that it's readily available, wherever the mass takes us. And I expect all of you to be watching tonight, Game 1 of the World Series on Fox.
Well, hold on, there's another sporting event tonight.
Which is
Hopefully everybody knows the NBA has its opening, the ring ceremony in Cleveland. NBA on TNT, 7:30 tonight. We'll be live at 6 if you want to turn it on.
Jeff, anything to
We're
plug?
not competing with that.
We're on live tonight on
back.
USA, so please
There
tune
you go.
in.
So you could just flip around. But I think the live experience is, speaking from the monetization side of things, it's appointment viewing. So I think one of the bigger challenges on the entertainment side, at least at our company, as well as other media companies now, is time-shifted viewing, which is more and more prevalent with the different services that are available, with the DVR capabilities that exist, with the bandwidth online. And so to have something that a marketer can say, I can put my message in real time, and I know people are going to be watching at this time on this night. So tonight, if you hypothetically want to roadblock an ad message for a movie, you could buy Fox, Turner, and WWE tonight, and you're gonna hit those consumers. And so that's one distinct advantages that live sports has, I think, over other video entertainment.
But when you think about that, Will, there's so many people in this room. I even believe you think about this as well. Do you think the way you guys monetize in that format? I believe people will watch the NBA, wrestling, and baseball tonight. I also believe that if you just look at basic Twitter data of people talking and the growth of that in between your actual programming, the way you make the majority of your money, or depending on the business you are, is the stuff in between when a Jeep goes up a mountain and somebody's using a bar of soap. Are you concerned as this device grows that you're gonna have to figure out different ways to actually make the kind of money you need to pay for the rights for this kind of high IP value?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I think what we are telling our marketing partners, our advertising partners, is you have to make the messaging contextually relevant. To have a Jeep going up a mountain is fine,
but
the
I'm sorry to interrupt you,
engagement,
but even if you have a Jeep with LeBron in it,
right?
which is contextual as shit,
Yes,
right?
it is.
If it's the middle commercial, there's the trend, the common sense layer is speaking to, are we actually giving attention to that, and is that commercial worth it? And by the way, I don't think that like, you're going out of business, it's none of that kind of talk. I think to have this kind of group up here, what I'm fascinated by is, are the A-Rods of the world and the Barclays of the world gonna make the same amount of money when with this live streaming devices that are all the live services where, I don't know, somebody can just live stream from their living room with the programming and they become the commentator, and we're seeing interesting numbers, right? Andy Roddick going live on, on Periscope, he's the announcer, and there's really no way to stop that arbitrage. And so I'm fascinated, contextually to this conversation. We could talk about, and all of you make great products, but this is a lot of the current establishment that's making money. And I think the young entrepreneurial world that I know very well is hugely naive. They sit up here and they look at a group of power players like this and they think, well, they don't know what's going on. They fucking know what's going on. You're just making a ton of economics in the way it is now. To me, I think the thing that will bring the most value to this group is to have the conversation that we're all fascinated by, which is not whether they watch it on that old piece of shit or this, it's these two in combination over the next decade has a lot of interesting variables. How much conversations and thoughts do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's every day that we think about that. I think you look at a site that we own called Bleacher Report, which is the #1 publisher in terms of social engagement in the United States, online and on mobile. So we bought that company to be in that space. So when you're getting your Bleacher update and you're watching the NBA on TNT, we're there. And our marketing partners, the way we're packaging now, is we're telling them you need to be both places and you need to be on Twitter. Now there is some disruption because anyone can be a broadcaster, but those numbers are on a relative basis very, very small. Even relative to an average TV
Are you
audience.
directly referring to Twitter's football streaming?
Yeah, on a relative basis, yeah. It's very small relative to the TV
and
audience.
Do you think that plays out historically, like the executives that sat in your seat in the 60s and late 50s and made fun of television versus radio audience?
Well, I don't think it's making fun of it. I think
I'm not making fun of it, but
it's growing.
You zinged them.
Yeah,
you zinged them.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's facts, right? You can see the numbers.
Correct.
The
and
facts
do you think
are
the facts play out that we get sucked more into this universe?
I think people will go to the best available screen. I think if you have a game on a 70-inch, 4K, HD, whatever it is, and that screen's available to you, you're going to go to that screen. If I'm in a car, I'm on my way to the airport, and the game is streaming on Twitter, I'm watching the game
Jeff, let's get you
on my phone.
Thoughts on this stuff?
Yeah, so this is what we think about every day. So the way we see it is the number of platforms and the number of the different types of business models are going to increase. There's more options, right? So yeah, you'll have the option to now watch on your phone or your tablet or your desktop or your TV. The way that we see the consumption generally playing out is the phone, desktop, tablet is complementary to TV and tends to fill in the gaps. So while people, on your phone, what you'll do is when you're out, if you want to catch the game, now you can watch it during periods that you weren't able to watch it before. So we've found when we've streamed events, Super Bowl, SEC games, other NFL games, that it's additive to the overall TV experience. So there's that piece. But then when we talk about the options, right? So obviously you can stream on Facebook, right? There's other ways that you can do that. But with each of those, you really have to. There's at its core an economic model that needs to work. So it's not like we're going to take our highest value premium content and then start to distribute it out on social platforms when the economics aren't
You're
there
not
right now.
interested in building Facebook's business.
No, exactly. But at the same time, we are interested in streaming content on Facebook where it makes sense for us.
George?
So we do create programming, fantasy football content, conversations with athletes, right? And so we'll create content for that. And then where it makes sense, maybe there are live events where the economics do make sense because because Facebook and CBS have sorted it out. But again, it has to make sense. We're not just saying, oh, we're going to put it everywhere because it's the right thing to do and our content needs to go everywhere. Premium content needs a business model that works.
Yeah, Gary, I think one of your premises, I think when you weighed and said, hey, you guys are making money in the old world, so I'd argue that.
Go ahead.
I mean, today, we've doubled the amount of content we create. So we do about 1,600 hours. And for every piece of content, we say, is this to grow the audience, engage the audience, make money directly through advertising or licensing, or use it to make money indirectly through promoting it? When I look at my business today, my second largest business, which I just launched 2 years ago, is now a direct-to-consumer, over-the-top subscription network. So it's my second largest business. It's my second most profitable business. Over the last 12 months, it's my fastest growing business. YouTube, my consumption on YouTube's gone from 15 million hours a year globally in 2010 to somewhere around 500 to 600 million I'll do this year. YouTube is now one of my largest ways to monetize content globally. So I'll take issue with the fact that we're just making money in the traditional way.
I respect that.
So if you're platform agnostic, if you own the IP, if you can tier your content, right? Because we don't put the same content everywhere. Some content goes AVOD, some content SVOD, some content in the bundle. I think there is a way to make money across the three platforms.
How do you, please?
Yeah, but owning the customer, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's sort of the holy grail is understanding them. I think the interesting thing, from my standpoint, is it's a great time to be a consumer because there's a lot of choices now, and you can see the content and get to the content in a lot of different ways. But for us, it's a great platform for innovation, right? There's a lot of opportunities to figure out new ways to get that content to them. And from an ad standpoint, one of the things we're doing is we acquired a company called Truex, and we do these engagement ads. And if you go to the World Series tonight, you'll see one. We have one with T-Mobile where you can go and engage with T-Mobile for 10 seconds, or you can watch a 15-second pre-roll, and then you're into the content. So that's a premium position for T-Mobile, and it's that's a new way. I won't say it's like the next generation kind of thing, but it certainly is a step in that direction.
Well, Clark,
and it's a step away from traditional media.
What George is referring to that's different than the rest of us on this table is he's vertically integrated. It's his IP. He's controlling the distribution. The three of you do not have that luxury. If you were to predict how all this technology plays out, do you see a time and day? Do you think there'll ever be an access curve where you can't offer enough upfront money as a bank that makes them interested in going direct to consumer? Because that's where you get to peacock because you actually own the IP. Will there ever be a day that the owners of these leagues say, listen, Turner, CBS, Fox, love you, and boy, do I want that 200 million, 500 billion, 7 trillion up front. But we're at that point now where we can go the other way. Me as a publisher, I've made a decision like, I don't know if I need HarperCollins' money anymore to be my bank. I'm going to go DTC because I've gotten to that point. Do you think that ever plays out in the next 30 years?
Well, okay, a few things. One, we own some of our own IP. We own a property called E-League, which we started our own esports league. We are all in. We built studios. We have a partnership with WME, IMG on the teams that are participating.
Was that strategic move an indication that you believe that day could eventually, the next decade or two, be upon us?
Let me put it this way. We like owning the IP and controlling the ecosystem from that standpoint. On the league side, we have the rights to the NBA through 2025. For March Madness, we have the rights to March Madness through 2032. So I don't.
Is your thought like you'll be retired?
I'll be retired by then. That's what I'm saying.
Understood.
Okay, so
Jeff?
I'll pass.
Yeah, I mean these sports deals go on for a while, but in 30 years, I mean, geez, man, 30 years, my God, I don't know. But right, what do? We distribute sports content well. Our CBS Sports digital properties reach 73 million people per month. Right, we have OTT solutions with CBS All Access. We are building the distribution models of the future. That's where we're looking. We're looking at mobile. We're looking at all the different places where people are consuming sports, and we monetize it very well. So is it gonna? I don't see it coming in the future.
Clark, for you, real quick, just curious.
I mean, in 30 years, I mean,
that's to your point. I think that's a little too far out. Like, when does your football deal end?
I think we have another 5 or 6 years on the current
that's a
deal.
good one.
But the rest of our deals are very much like Will's. They're way out in time. Our deal with the Pac-12, Big 12,
Yep.
the Big 10 deal that starts in a year or so. So the crown jewel content is always going to be coveted, and those are just follow up on what Will said earlier. It's appointment TV.
Yep.
It's must-see TV. I think that'll always be the case. Is there a world where they start going direct to consumer? Technically, they're already doing it, right? They're already doing it with some of their content, but not the premium content because that's where we all play a role.
But you look at something like Red Zone that's going direct to consumer, and that is swallowing up the world. They're not monetizing it themselves. That's probably the most fascinating thing.
Sure, but Game Pass, Game Pass is a product that they market direct to consumer, and they market direct to consumer on our property.
George, let me take this in a different direction. Radio, sports, boxing, baseball, horse racing. TV comes along, perfect for football. You start seeing the rise with that. If you had to make a guess, a prediction, early intuition, what's going to be the sport that is born in a live environment on this device that today doesn't have the attention of everybody in the audience?
Yeah, I think it does have some attention, but if I would put money down today, I'd say esports. I think it's
You're not going to say professional wrestling? Come on.
Well, he said new, right? We're going to own that screen as well, and we'll continue to do that.
Yeah,
but
just
if you
trying to
said,
help.
thanks. But if you said something new that's coming along, I
Yeah.
think esports, it's a perfect combination of it works on that size screen, and the integration of data, I think, works real well too. So,
Jeff, anything pop in your mind?
Well, I think esports is kind of, I think that's a very good answer, but there's also, I think, any sport that has a lot of talent or viral aspects to it. So I think you'll even see kind of things that like surfing or kind of or like motocross and those things where they're just more
Some of the
interesting
stuff
and there's
we see from
talent.
GoPro,
Yeah.
like
So
content,
and I think with that, and I don't think those are going to dominate, but I think the point is we could see more long tail sports where there's interesting things happening, talent that on display where you can cut it up in interesting highlights and distribute it out to people on mobile devices.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, I don't know if there's a sport. I mean, we're in esports, so I already mentioned that. I think it's something like part of Bleacher Report, we bought a company called House of Highlights. And it is literally what you're saying. It is going out and finding the coolest shit out there. And it's bottle flipping, it's everything you can, trick shots in golf and basketball, just ridiculous stuff. And it is massive. And it is now it's funneled through Bleacher Report now through your social feeds and through the website, and it's just on fire. So it's
Live or recorded?
No, it's individuals, and there's a curation process where we take a look. There's a guy at House of Highlights, and he looks at everything he can find. Now he gets sent stuff, right? Because it's become so big that everyone sends him videos. They're anywhere from 10 to 20 seconds long, but it runs the gamut of stuff, of people doing stuff, and it's all under the guise of highlights. And it's really interesting, and it's compelling.
the other element of the thing you keep holding up, we're taking a pretty US-centric approach, which is about a mature business model, rebundling, unbundling. To us, the real powerful element of that tool is the global nature, right? So for us, we have more viewers in India every week than we have in the US. There will be a lot more people viewing content on those devices than on TV, because a TV is expensive.
That's right.
An Indian household will have multiple people, but only one TV, so one person choosing what gets watched. That allows everyone to choose what they want to watch and expands the audience dramatically. So, back to your element, and we all sit in different places in the value chain, but if you have IP and you have a global brand, that device changes the game outside the US, more so even than in the US.
Clark, how do you think about the current state of the social platforms that have so much attention of the end consumer and seem to be, I don't want to say disrespectful, but it's an intriguing relationship between the Facebook and Snapchat of the world and some of the stuff that Instagram might be coming out with around how it's dealing with IP or sharing and rev share. Do you view them as really important emerging distribution channels, and how do you think of them from a business standpoint?
Well, I think it's, there's sort of a lot there. From a social standpoint, literally we utilize those platforms to speak to our consumers directly, and we use those platforms for that purpose. I think what Twitter is doing, that to me is more, frankly, of an NFL experiment than, a Twitter experiment. I
Do you,
think
do you
Twitter's.
feel that Twitter has built a very large library of being an OTT play for mobile? Because they've bought a lot of rights.
Well, obviously the most significant thing that we've all been seeing this year is the NFL and what they're doing with the NFL. You know, the audience numbers are interesting to look at and see. You know, the other sports that they have access to and the other sports that they have rights to. You know, personally, I'm not as much familiar with what they're doing on those sides, but
Got it.
you know, look, you definitely have to keep an eye on it, and I'm always interested as these bigger rights deals come up, what role, you know, a Silicon Valley company, frankly, is going to play in that. You know, is Google going to get, you know, the last round of rights around the Premier League? It was interesting. There were a ton of rumors about Amazon, Google, and Twitter to a lesser extent, but I kept hearing those things and speaking to the people I speak to, and it sounded like somebody was going to make a move, and you wonder if, you know, the Premier League actually took a step back and said, let's stay with, you know, the proven model here, and we'll wait and see if somebody else makes a move. And you know, I think the NFL is trying something.
Do you think it's a domino play? Do you think if the NHL makes an Amazon deal, it creates the framework for those players to be part of the distribution game?
It's possible. It's possible. I just thought an international property is a better place to you know, I would have thought an international. Yeah. I still think an international property would be the first one you see in that sort of a new venue and a new way to consume it.
Well, you know, it was interesting more so with the Yahoo NFL deal, which was I think last year, the year before, it was the first time one of the digital players on a per hour, per viewer basis paid broadcast level rights.
Right.
It was only for a 3-hour piece of content, right? Not an entire season. But for us, that was somewhat eye-opening because to me, it was the first time one of the digital guys actually said, we're going to actually pay what the market is paying. So to answer your question, I think, you know, if you were sitting here and nobody has a crystal ball, but whether it's 5 or 10 years from now, my guess is they're going to be legit players for the rights as they come up.
Jeff, in your circles, there's obviously, for all 4 of you, how impactful have the NFL ratings slip been? You know, we've got all this hyperbole. The NFL is this golden goose, and now we're, you know, 6-7 weeks into the season, and there's a lot of chatter in my circles about the decline of those ratings. Have you felt that? Is that something you guys think about of what it could mean to the you know, you think of it like Wall Street, right? One big day, you know, all of a sudden, all the stuff that's been said, it's coming, people are like, wait a minute, could it be here?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, we obviously pay close attention to the ratings. But you know, we're not panicked by any stretch. I mean, we think the NFL is still extraordinarily healthy. But you know, you look at what happened in election periods in the past, 2000 as an example, we saw similar declines in NFL ratings.
Yep.
I think there's also been around, especially on the national games, just some bad luck around the quality of the games that have been on Thursday night.
Yeah, like 14 out of 18 games.
But because if you look at the 4 o'clock period, it's still strong. It's still the most highly viewed window.
First 4 weeks, right? Tom Brady suspended. I mean, he's
Thank
a huge
God.
star, right?
Oh, come on.
Hate him.
Peyton Manning retired, huge star. You know, Tony Romo injured, huge star. I mean, I think that plays.
Let's not get crazy about Romo.
Well,
I like Dak Prescott myself.
Let's not say huge.
Cowboys rate. The Cowboys rate. I mean, we can all sit here and talk about that, but
Of course.
I think the election overwhelmingly is the reason. I mean, you know, if you guys better know this better than I do, but the Sunday news shows in that day part, they're all up like 35%.
Yeah.
And you know what's happening on sort of the news gab fest on Sunday morning, people are reacting to it. So the numbers I saw through 4 weeks say that just the same amount of people are watching football.
Yep.
They're just watching a little bit less.
Yep.
Because they're watching the election, and the election is, you know, it's a dumpster fire and it's fun to watch.
Will, any thoughts,
Dumpster
Thad?
fire. You know, back to your
programming
question
idea.
about social media, I would say, you know, we embrace them. We have great partnerships with Facebook, with Snapchat, with Twitter.
Why
we think they're really
do you
important.
consider them great?
Because they're important partners. They reach a lot of people. You can't, I mean, you have to understand the massive reach that they have. Our relationships are complicated. We're working, finding our way. What's the best model? I know Bleacher now is a social first site and platform and publisher. the CEO, Dave Finocchio, just said, listen, let's just go all in on social.
Yep.
Because that's where people are consuming Bleacher Report. Those are the millennials. Those are the core Bleacher Report fans are on social, so let's just go there. And we're all in on it. So figuring out the monetization models between the two and who controls what is like an ongoing discussion.
The talent that is on broadcast, how much have you guys been strategizing about having them do more live stuff, more social, part of the contracts? What's the evolution of on-air talent in this live environment?
Well, I mean, all the deals are pretty straightforward in that, we can have them do just about anything we want them to do. I mean, we want them to count paper clips, that's what we'll do. But and the beauty of it is they're open to it because they're open to improving their brand and growing their brand as well. So, I mean, just this last week, we had a great sort of, moment where Pete Rose was talking about hitting. They were getting ready to do a bump or something. He had a bat, Alex Rodriguez had a bat, Frank Thomas had a bat. So arguably 3 Hall of Famers and the greatest hitter in the history of baseball, standing there. And Pete Rose was talking to them about the 6 things you do if you go into a slump. And he went through all 6 of them. And Alex Rodriguez and Frank Thomas, they were like, kids in a candy store. And it was a great moment. It went out on social media and, it was a good little viral hit for us. So that kind of stuff, it's the beautiful thing when it just sort of happens organically, and that's the beauty of it. When we don't try to overproduce it and try to make TV, just let the moment happen. I think that's a beautiful thing.
George, for you, since I like wrestling, your fan base
Doesn't everybody?
Yeah.
Your fan base is so passionate. I've always thought that one of the things about social media that was going to be not looked at properly in the early days was, yes, it was going to change marketing, but I always felt that it was also going to change R&D. Like, why guess what flavor of soda to make when the world's telling you? In a world where you're playing storyline and that is your narrative, obviously controlling that IP, have you started actually taking into account the feedback on social of what they like, what they don't like, things of that nature? How much is that actually getting into the IP itself now?
Yeah, so I'll say 2 things. First, I saw your, I think it was an interview on CBS where you were talking about social and the power of social, and you said, hey, look, the first thing to be successful is you got to be good. So I said, yeah, he hit on it. Luckily, we have a long history of being good at 3 things: creating stars, telling stories, and producing content, right?
Yep.
Those are the 3 things we're really good at, and guess what? It translates beautifully to social. To your question on, it's funny, I was sitting in a room with Vince and a few other folks the other day, and we had a screenshot of Tableau up, and we were watching the social commentary for one of our next big events, which is Hell in a Cell coming up at the end of the month. So to answer your question, we've been social digital as a primary strategic focus for about 7 years, even before it was cool. So it's in everything we do, and we use it every day.
But when you populate a star because the fans seem to be...
Of course, we've seen it happen.
Yep.
Right? I mean, our second most popular Chinese, second most popular talent in China is a Chinese talent, right? Ben Wang, because we've created that persona for him in China. So yeah, without a doubt, our entire NXT brand, our development brand, which we only show on WWE Network here in the U.S., sold out in Brooklyn. Yep. Right? 13,000 fans. Distributed on a platform that only has about 1.5 million subscribers, 5th largest in the US, but only 1.5 million we're able to sell out. That's all social.
Yep. Jeff, parting thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, social has changed everything in terms of that feedback loop, right? So yeah, we have the ability now to test new shows cheaply on Facebook Live and see if it resonates. We've tested in the fantasy space especially. We've tested some other kind of Q&A things that we've looked at investing more on digital. And then if you look at the control rooms on Sundays or Saturdays, I mean, yeah, they know exactly what the feedback is and what stuff is working and what stuff isn't working. It's conversation that goes on every day. It's in the details. It's things that where you don't think people hear it, they hear it. I mean, it's part of the process now.
Will, final thoughts on what you're hearing from your customers from a sales perspective about this?
Well, I mean, I think that our customers are finding their way. They're trying to understand this landscape and trying to understand consumer behavior when it's really changing very rapidly. And there's limited budgets that marketers have, so they have to make some bets on where to be. We have some partners that still are very traditional TV heavy, and it's not that they're ignoring social media. They feel like they want reach,
Yep.
and maybe it's not as targeted. And then we have some that literally want to buy data.
Yep.
So it really runs the gamut in terms of what we're hearing, and we're trying to position ourselves well in each of these areas, whether it's through acquisition or building capabilities internally.
Awesome. Well, right on time. Let's clap it up for these nice men. Thank you, guys. Good job.
Thanks.